But then if you
Yeah.
want to, you can just go anywhere online and just download it.
Yeah.
So
Or
you
like
do
my
have
Mac,
that choice.
I
Yeah,
distribute my
on a Mac,
emulator. I
right?
distribute my emulator. Whoa.
Is that lightning?
Yeah.
Whoa! Hello and welcome to the Thinking in Tech podcast. I'm one of the co-hosts, Dylan. I'm here with my co-host, Baz.
As.
And this is a podcast of two guys who work in tech. We play around with technology. We just love technology, and so we like to talk about it. So let's see. We have a great show today, but before we get started, if those watching would be kind enough to hit the like button down below, we have a ton of fun doing this show, and we really want to be able to grow it as much as possible. And each one of those like counts, they go a long way helping us expand and find a new audience. And if you enjoy what you're watching, also feel free to click the button right next to that, which is a subscribe button, and that's how you'll get all our future videos.
And if we don't grow, I'm gonna be sad.
You don't want to make Baz sad. Don't let Baz be sad.
Okay.
Alrighty, but before we get started with the news today, anything interesting you've been up to lately, Baz?
Yeah. Well, I'm always doing crazy things. So I've been reading up on how the original Nintendo did its video graphics with its PPU chip. How it rendered backgrounds and sprites and all that. And it's fascinating. It did not have a frame buffer, right? There wasn't like dedicated memory set aside in a grid to draw on the screen. It was actually similar to the Atari 2600, the original Atari console, in that the sheen just has to put the right color as the beam's going across the TV. And the Nintendo's advance was that it gives you some structure and takes care of a lot of that for you, but not not just a grid of pixels. You've got tiles, and you can say display this tile at this point. So anyway, and the reason I'm doing this is I never had a Nintendo, but a lot of people did, and it's a mid '80s tech, and I have this idea to graft that functionality into the Apple II world, because I think for all the reasons it made sense to have that kind of setup on the Nintendo, uh, i.e., it makes it way less memory bandwidth intensive and much easier for people to write games
Mm.
doing cool stuff on the screen without using up a lot of computer resources. Well, the Apple II is also very resource constrained, so it'll be an interesting experiment to see how effective that can be by putting a little bit smarter graphics into an Apple II. So I'm going to implement that first in my emulator project. But there's a ton of people making kind of add-on video cards now for Apple IIs. And I think if I can show, proof of concept, rally the troops, maybe we can get, some of these video card authors to all agree on the same approach to
Mm-hmm.
to doing this, and then people could actually have some fun and do some interesting things with this in the real world. It's Emulator's one thing because you can do anything in an emulator, right?
All
Because
right. Yeah.
you have infinite computing resources on PCs these days. But actually, then having something that could work in this actual old hardware, that's fascinating. So anyway, that's what I'm working on.
Yeah, and so you're saying this is like an actual, ideally put on a real piece of hardware somewhere that you could hook up to a classic Apple II, right? And then you can actually have those advanced graphics on a real Apple II is the idea.
Yeah, right. What's happened is a lot of these the cards that have come out now are all intended to let you plug a modern, like HDMI monitor into an Apple II because
Mm-hmm.
people are having a hard time finding CRTs, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Uh, that still work. I've been lucky. I've got a 2E color monitor and I've got a 2GS
Nice.
color monitor uh, from the period, the the GS one, at least I know, has someone went through and replaced all the capacitors and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Uh, but there's other things that can fail on these transformers and whatnot. So there's not. I mean, they made a lot of them, but they're not easy to come by necessarily. You can't
Yeah, I feel
just
like the people who have them now want to hang on to them, right?
yeah,
Like if you still have one this day.
and more and more die every day. So
Hmm.
um, anyway, it's easy to get LCD displays of various types. So that's kind of the premise behind a lot of these cards, and this connects back to a project I was involved in the '90s, which was we created a VGA video adapter for the Apple II, um,
Hmm.
and it was it was sort of the first version of the template that I think all these cards over the past 10 years have done. So they watch what they watch all of the address and data activity on the Apple II bus and copy all of the video memory writes into the card so that they know what the Apple II is expecting, and that's how they know how to replicate video output, but then render it for modern displays. Um,
Okay.
so I'm not new to this concept. Sadly, it was 94 or 95. I think we only sold. I never actually knew the exact number, but there's probably no way we sold more than 500 of them.
Mm.
Um, and so they're sort of unobtainium at this point. Uh,
Yeah.
I actually sold mine to an avid collector, and I regret it a little bit, but on the other hand, like you know, I'm uh, I'm happy with the stuff I've got and the new stuff that I hope to make. So
Yeah, that's it's really cool that there's someone out there who was like really, collecting and looking for the thing that you were a part of making and you were able to be kind of like make their day and be like, okay, you can have this.
yeah, he
Um,
even made me like write him a letter of a certificate of authenticity kind of thing
yeah,
that
wow.
collectors do.
That's awesome. And
I'm like,
it's
yeah, I'll
it's
do it.
also really cool like, you were mentioning like the new versions that people are making of that like to this day are basing
Hmm.
it off that original one you made, back in the early
The
90s.
the
That's
technique,
awesome.
yeah,
The
the
technique,
techniques
yeah.
that we use to make it work are the same techniques that they're using today. Of course, today you can we had a coprocessor and then the VGA chip, and our coprocessor was a Z180, so it was Z80 kind of next generation.
Mm.
It could
Okay, yep.
access like bigger address bus, a little more 16-bit-ish. Um, but today, um, you know, even low end, 150 megahertz Raspberry Pis are just ridiculously
Yeah.
powerful compared to that. And so the things that you can do um, are pretty amazing. And I think there haven't been any of these that have really pushed the envelope yet. Like they
Hmm.
could, but um, that's where I'm hoping this year we'll be able to kickstart uh, some of this, get a few of these cards to support the idea. There's a bunch of software people who will be able to throw together some games quick. Even
Oh yeah.
even just port actual Nintendo games over. Um,
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to
yeah,
be able to play what is it, Legend of Zelda on an original Apple II.
yeah.
That'd be crazy.
There's
Yeah.
there's a Donkey Kong port for the 2GS, but it doesn't have any of that hardware support, so it's
Hmm.
very it requires an accelerator, for the machine, and it won't run on a 2E. Uh, so anyway, stay tuned if you're interested in this retro business at all.
Totally. Yeah, it'd be great in the future if we can have like a little almost like off podcast episode where we demonstrate adding the card in and then playing something on the card on original hardware. I'm envisioning it now.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah. So all right. And yeah, so what I've been up to lately, it kind of almost um connects this in a way just because I got a little sneak preview of this yesterday. We had so a member of the tech community in our area, they do a month. Actually, Lou Franco, who's been on the show before, he does a monthly tech meetup in Sarasota, and it just happened to come around the same time of the 3 year anniversary of the Tech Discord community server I have for Sarasota. So we kind of had a 3 year lunch celebration yesterday at one of the local breweries. And that was a lot of fun. It was really amazing to see people come together to celebrate that. Some people, like,
Hmm.
UBAS, have been the server for almost the entire 3 years. And, time flies, but it's almost, really got an awesome community, of tech folk in Sarasota. And people that go to the lunches, or people that are in the Discord, and some people are in both. And it's awesome to see. We had one of the members of the community bring coconut cookies, which were very delicious. I ate way too many of them,
Yeah, those are
and
good.
oh yeah, I'm still thinking about those. And yeah, and then you told me a little bit about some of this Apple II stuff, which is cool. Yeah, so happy 3 years, Sarasota Software Developers Discord.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of us down here in Sarasota. You should check out the scene if you're down here on vacation. Hit us up.
Yeah, no, totally. These are open to the public lunch meetups we have. There's
Hmm.
one during the week once a month and one on a weekend once a month. So if you're ever in the Sarasota area, look it up on, we kind of use a meetup as like the general public platform, and sign up and come have lunch with us and talk some tech. And it's like this podcast, but in person. Alrighty. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and hop over to recent news in tech. We're going to start off with talking about how the video game Fortnite is back on the Apple App Store on iOS for the first time in 6 years. Do you know? Were you familiar with any of this kind of like the fight between Fortnite and Apple, Baz?
Yeah, I think I heard about it around the time it started, actually. And there hasn't been much news about it lately. I imagine they were just there. They were fighting court battles in
Hmm.
different venues, like Europe and the United States, I think, if I remember. Um, and so yeah, it's been going on for quite a while.
Yeah. It's been going, yeah. So 6 years, and I wish, like, honestly, this feels like an entire study that could be done in, like, a law class. There's so much to kind of read up on all the happenings in it. But to try to kind of give a quick overview, 6 years ago, well, like, so Fortnite has probably been around for like 8 years, maybe now, something like that,
Hmm.
almost 10 years. But really popular online game, and they have it, on PlayStation, on PC, and for a while it was on the phone on, the Apple iOS store.
Hmm.
Well, on most of the times you release a game on, PlayStation, you know, I'm sure you share some with, like, PlayStation or whoever, or on PC you just sell a game and you get most of that. But on iPhone for, mobile video games, Apple would take 30% of anything you sell on that video game. So even if you have the game, you can download it and play for free. They have things where you can, like, buy, like clothes for your character, or like weapons. Probably, I assume. I actually
Hmm.
didn't play a whole lot of Fortnite, so I'm not super familiar with the game itself. I just know it's like one of the shooter games, but very
Right.
popular. And so it's published and made by Epic Games, which has been around for a while, and that's headed by Tim Sweeney. And they, after a while, they're like, we really don't want to pay this 30% tax to Apple, because it's, a big part of their revenue. So
Right.
that they were what they initially tried doing was, within the app, almost having like a web browser, I think, just to go to the Fortnite website or something along these lines. I might not be getting the details completely right.
Yeah, some they were bypassing the store for in-game purchases,
Yeah.
right? Like if I wanted to buy, I actually don't know much about the game, but assume like a role-playing type game, like some of them let you buy advanced, weapons or whatever, in the game, right? So maybe you, like you said, it's free or a nominal fee, to get the app, but you can also buy stuff once you're in the game. Um, is that correct?
Yep. And they
Okay.
have something like battle passes, I think, which are like subscriptions. So like
Hmm.
they'll have different characters you can play as. So like if you pay the subscription, like monthly subscription, kind of like a Netflix kind of thing, you get the new characters and you can only get them from that subscription. And a lot of people pay for that. Yeah, so they but Apple caught on to what they're doing and like, nope, you can't do that. You can't get around our like our like the tax fence basically. So you need to stop doing this and go through our system to collect
Hmm.
payment, or we have to take you off the App Store.
Right.
Which anyone before that could try that and be like, okay, we got caught by Apple, we got to play by the rules. But Fortnite, they didn't. They're like, if we're not going to do this, we will let you kick us off the App Store. If it has to be that way, and that's what happened. And then after that, that's when, like you said, the court cases kind of started up, and in America here, and in the European Union, and I'm sure they had a different one, and like for the UK and Australia, just like a worldwide thing of like Epic versus Apple. And like you initially heard about it when it first started, and then I feel like every couple of years you heard some updates on it, and
Hmm.
then like different rules happen in different countries. And just last week actually the game came back on the App Store, which it seemed kind of random almost. Like I wasn't sure if they won something or if they figured something out with Apple, but it didn't seem like it yet. I don't think I have the quote down here, but Tim Sweeney, which is CEO of Apple, no, I'm not that's Tim Cook, or was Tim Cook.
It
Tim
was Tim
Sweeney
Cook.
is this, yeah, he's the CEO of Epic, and he's saying this is like the final stages of this whole 6 year battle. And I guess getting it on the App Store first is part of it, and then I think we're gonna probably have even more news next week, or at least he seems to think there will be.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happened with that. I sympathize. I sympathize with both sides,
Yeah.
as is often the case. Um,
No.
but I sympathize a little bit more with the application authors in this case. 30%. It's a lot, right? Epic is a large company. They've got a lot of expenses to build and maintain these games. And if you just take 30% right off the top, that hurts. It hurts a lot. Um, and, I'm sure they had kind of rationalized it as well. If the 30% is just on like, what we have to pay to get people into the game, and then we can make our own revenue aside from that. They probably built, a business model around assuming that um, they could make that work. Um, this 30% I think started with iTunes, right? Like,
Oh, did it?
uh,
Huh? With
yeah, I
just
think
like
so.
songs,
Like it's
huh?
a
Yeah.
dollar, it's 99 cents a song, and then Apple
Mm.
kept 30 cents, 30%. So I think they carried that on into the App Store, when they launched the iPhone. Um, and for little throwaway stuff, it's probably fine, right? Because if you're gonna pay, let's say, typical apps like a couple bucks, right? If you try to process that payment yourself, you've got the credit card fee, you've got a transaction fee, you've got just overhead maintaining all of that stuff and the security. That okay, so it's like 60 or 75 cents. That's a good deal, to get a buck or two, right, from my customer. But I think that's very different than, the situation Epic was in. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, from going from just a song and a percentage from song an individual song to like financing a huge video game that you got to pay for like all the servers and the salaries of employees that work to build those video games. That costs a lot of money, and basically you assume Apple is probably where they got like a good chunk, like maybe like a third of their players to have
Mm-hmm.
30% of all the profit taken off that. That's got to affect a company, pretty greatly. Um, and like, maybe because they're a larger company, they're able to kind of pay that tax. But I think it's almost like they stick up in a way for the smaller developers who,
Mm-hmm.
like that, that could be, the difference between of owning a second car or something. If there's a small independent, developer, and all 30% of all they make is taken from Apple. But it's like there's also something to be said maybe about like the App Store. Like it kind of has that built-in marketing to it a little bit, almost kind of like eBay does, where it kind of gives a place to put your stuff out there for people to find.
Yeah.
I think there's, and like, was it over half of all phone users are iPhone users, and there's like, I think it's a built-in sense of security and safety when buying anything on or downloading anything from an iPhone. You're not worried there's gonna be any issues with what you're downloading because you have Apple kind of filters, content and just like what's in the actual software to make sure it's safe for users to use.
Well, I think
So,
one of the issues that I think they brought up and that the EU looked at involves the fact that Apple doesn't allow people to put programs or apps on their iPhones any
mhm.
other way except through the iPhone. So it's a closed ecosystem, right? Apple controls the only entrance, whereas Android um, has always allowed side loading.
Mhm.
Like you have to turn it on, but it's not a big deal. You just go into the like I think developer settings or something, and in any phone I've ever had, it's not hard to find, and you just bop, and then you can just download an APK off the web if you want. Now maybe that's not the safest thing for your average phone user, but uh, it's possible, right? It's a lot more open. Um, and so when Google says, we can, we'll charge 30% too, and I believe they do,
Mhm.
um, there's ways around it. Whereas
Yeah.
there really isn't um, for a typical iPhone user.
Which for Android they like they're provided that like safe place to go download applications and stuff. Even
Hmm.
on like a Windows computer, they have like the Microsoft Store you can use. But then if you
Yeah.
want to, you can just go anywhere online and just download it.
Yeah.
So
Or
you
like
do
my
have
Mac,
that choice.
I
Yeah,
distribute my
on a
emulator.
Mac, right?
Whoa!
Is that lightning?
Yeah.
Whoa, that
and
that sounded pretty close. We were
and my
joking
surge
that.
suppressor went beep. I think that's what
Uh,
went beep.
wow, let's see.
We
Let's see
may
if we
have to.
lose you or not. Yeah. Wow, we were literally joking before recording that would happen. I did not knock on wood. My bad.
I installed a whole home surge suppressor after the neighbor's house got blown up
Hmm.
last summer by lightning. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that will help prevent electronics damage again
Yeah,
this year.
fingers crossed. Yeah,
Okay.
podcast continuity and protect the
Yes.
house. All
Sorry.
right,
Sorry about that, everybody. Well,
that's Florida for you. That's yeah.
yes. What were we just talking about?
I have no idea. We were talking about the Play Store versus the App Store, I think, and on
Yeah.
Android, users have a choice to use their
Right.
store or go through the back door.
Yeah. And Apple will argue, oh, there's competition. You can buy a Google phone and use their app
Hmm.
store. Uh, right. And I'm sure that's an argument that they made. But um, if I was Apple, um, I don't know. Uh, that's not how I would run it, right? Like I would be a little more understanding to the needs of different types of app developers, right?
Hmm.
Not everybody's in the same bucket, kind of like what I was alluding to earlier. Like you might need some flexibility for different categories um, of businesses. I mean, they still make bank, right, on it, and it's
Yeah,
like
and they still
phone,
would.
they sell the phone, and then their ongoing revenue stream is from app purchases and stuff like and they can certainly afford to be. I'm not saying that they should like give it away, right? But be more flexible. What's it's not going to kill them
Yeah.
to understand that Epic is not uh like 30% might make sense on a song where it's just a piece of data and there's nothing that you have to keep running, to continue to distribute that. It's trivial compared to a game. I don't know.
I
There's
think like even maybe like 10% would be more reasonable. But like you gotta think like the people at Apple, like the money people, they know they have control of it, and they're like, no, we're not gonna do anything to make
Yeah,
that number go down a little bit because
or have a sliding scale, right? Like the
that would
first
yeah
$5 is 30%, and then the next $5 is 20%, and the next $5 is something like that, right?
yeah anything
We're
right
Yeah. Um, well, they put their foot down, and now governments are putting their foot down. So we'll see what happens.
yeah it seems like something might be coming up soon with that. I think it's like what it comes down to me, I almost just like think about this on the moment, but smartphones have gotten so much more powerful now, and like their use in people's everyday life of like a non-average huge nerd like me. There's many people who don't even own PCs anymore. They just
Yeah.
have their smartphone now. So if the smartphone is in a way a replacement of what a PC used to be, it should be the users using that PC should have the same amount of control they do with their PC. And you have
Hmm.
that comparison, like a Macintosh, you have that freedom. If the iPhone's just supposed to be like a portable PC, should probably have the same amount of freedom. I think that argument, once the iPhone or mobile phone be pretty comparable to the desktop computer, I think they kind of lose a little bit of that argument about what they're saying about it.
Yeah, it would be like if Apple started saying, "Oh, Adobe, if you want to sell Photoshop on the Mac, you have to give us 30%."
Yeah, and that's like when you think about it that way, that's when people start coming out with pitchforks, I think, and they already kind of
Yeah.
are with the iPhone, but just like it, it's not that different, but it's kind of a different mindset. And then you're like, okay, yeah,
Yeah, like they um, the PC market would never have tolerated that. Uh,
mm-hmm,
but
yeah,
because they started the phone market with that, and it's never been any other way. And so maybe that's what it's going to take, right? Like when Google started doing their phone stuff, they just followed Apple's model. But if somebody new came to market and said, "We have an open app store, and we're here to sell phones, and maybe we'll make our money. We'll get a few percent of the cellular plan revenue instead of trying to sell apps. Like you guys make whatever money you want selling apps. We'll get our revenue some other way." Uh, that might that might blow the doors off what Apple and Google have been trying to do by
I
locking
feel
people into app stores.
yeah, but to even be able to like be a new phone company with a new different OS and be able to squeeze into where that there's most people, smartphones been around for almost 20 years now, and people are kind of already attached to their Apple or their Google, their Android ecosystem. So, like,
Hmm.
I feel like there's almost no chance really for someone to be able to come in and not have a very niche audience.
Yeah, you could do it in Android. I mean, so there's Android, but then there's like 100 companies making Android phones, right? So you could
Yeah.
have something based on Android, I suppose, and that's half. Let's say it's half the market. It might be more than half the market on like new sales. I haven't looked at the figures in a while. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, but it might be that kind of thing, or maybe there will be some entirely new class of device that changes everything, like
Yeah. And
the implantable the
there you
implantable
go.
mobile device.
Yep. And then smartphones will be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Oh, alrighty. Well, we will keep paying attention to what happens with I guess the case and all the happenings, and yeah, maybe I'll try out Fortnite on the iPhone and see what all the fuss is about. I played it like when it first came out on like the last generation Xbox for a little bit, and by then
Okay.
I was already too busy to like get good on like online games and dedicate tons of time towards it. But I imagine it's a much different game now. So, alrighty, so moving into our next news story, we'll be talking about how Utah residents are not happy with a planned AI data center that they're looking to build there. So, we got a celebrity investor, Kevin O'Leary, which I know from Shark Tank. I imagine most people know from Shark Tank. He wants to pay for an AI data center in rural Utah. So it's going to, this data center is going to be built to generate 7.5 gigawatts of power for, powering AI, which, to compare, that's over 6 times the energy needed to send a DeLorean back in time from Back to the Future. The size of the data center is going to be around 10,000 to 13,000 acres, and so as a comparison to that, that's basically the size of all of Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. They have all the 4 different parks and all the hotels and all the land they own. It's basically that size. So imagine just a humongous warehouse that's just full of servers, making power for AI. That's kind of like the picture for it. So residents there, they're hearing about this plan that, they're going to build this, and they're pretty worried about the environmental impact of, such a massive, data center. I believe they use a lot of water for different chips, cooling processes. They use a lot of water that comes through for these the data centers. That's the word. So this is in Box Elder County, which is a district in the northwest part of Utah. So on the development side, they're saying this could create up to 2,000 permanent jobs working in the data center. So some of the water concerns that the residents have is that they're already being told to ration water just because the conditions are so dry. So they're worried that this is going to make water even more expensive, even more to use. They're worried about that. They're worrying about increased temperatures because how much heat will be generated from the AI data center. On the other side, Kevin Leary is saying that they're going to use their own water. They're not going to use water from the community. They're going to import water and have a recycling water system, is what he claims. So I think that's them trying to alleviate some of the fears from the community. And it says on Saturday afternoon, so this was either yesterday or last week, but people just started protesting at the Capitol, Utah. They had over 600 people. They have this, they got the picket signs and everything, and they're just showing up and not happy about what they're hearing.
That's like half of Utah. I'm kidding.
That's about half the state all showed up. Yeah. So, yeah, and this was a story specific to Utah, but I've been seeing it, like you saw on Facebook and just popping around. People are talking about putting these AI data centers kind of all over the country, and people are getting a little anxious in communities when they hear about this because they're worried that it's gonna be really loud, you're hearing buzzing sounds, or it's gonna mess with the house of not the house, the value of their houses and the neighborhoods. There's just a lot of general anxiety about these.
Yeah, this it might have been not even a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and my Facebook feed. For you young people, Facebook is what us old timers use to social media, and it just out of nowhere, seemingly, turned into this stream of people, saying they don't want data centers and no data centers in our town, and data
Yep.
centers are destroying everything. And I'm like, what is going on? So in a past life, I ran an internet service provider and telecommunications company. So we offered internet access and um, website hosting and all the usual internet service provider stuff. And the last 10 years or so that I was running it, we had built a 4,000 foot data center in downtown Denver. I was very proud of that because I'd always had kind of crappy ones before, and this wasn't too bad. Um, Not the best, but it served us really well. But anyway, so being in the industry, so like my facility was stacked with servers for our operations and web servers that I would run customer websites off of. Um, our telephone switch, which is basically a device that routes telephone call traffic, from
Okay.
phone A to phone B. Um, all this stuff is just like it's in a rack, right? And you bolt it into the rack and you supply power, um,
Mm-hmm.
and it generates heat, so you got to cool it. Uh, nothing. It's nothing special. It's just it's a building specialized to house computers instead of people. Um, and the entire world is running through these facilities now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you
Yeah,
make a
it's not a
telephone,
new thing,
no, it's not
right?
a new
Yeah.
at all, right? They kind of the foundation. Um, there were kind of two foundations to this, I think. One was telephone company wire centers like AT&T and Lumen. They have thousands of special buildings that go back to the early 1900s when the telephone network was getting established. From your home, your phone line, or now your internet line, uh, goes to a wire center or central office, and along with all of the other wires from all of the other homes and businesses in an area, right? So a small one might have 15 or 20,000 lines coming into it. So you've
Mm-hmm.
got stacks and stacks of equipment to terminate all those physical connections and route the traffic. A city like Denver Metro had almost 30 of these, right, to serve, in addition to a couple of special ones that were hubs, right, for the whole area. So there
Mm-hmm.
was uh, Denver, Maine, and then the long distance companies that had gotten broken out. They had hubs in each. That was also
Yeah.
again complaining about my power quality. um, the long distance companies had hubs in each of these geographic regions. Um, and so, like in downtown Denver, there was two whole like 10-story buildings for
Over.
just the Denver main central office, and then a whole nother building attached to that for the AT&T kind of long distance office, and then eventually the fourth building on that block, which originally was full of insurance companies and jewelers, got turned into um, all data center because when the competition started in the 90s, people are like, well, we need to connect to these buildings that the
Mm-hmm.
telephone companies own, and we want the wires to be as short as possible for cost reasons, and um, and then we need to put our equipment there, right? So now this whole it's a gorgeous building. Goes back to the early 1900s. It's called the Denver Gas and Electric Building. So every major city has this same type of setup.
And so you
Um,
just drive by these buildings, and they just look like a building to someone who
yeah,
doesn't know what's inside, huh?
people have no idea. They just look like office buildings.
Yeah.
Some of the smaller ones, like the one here, in Venice area, it's probably just a very small. Probably doesn't look like anything bigger than a typical house down here.
Okay.
Um, so that's the first type of data center. The second type was when you had computers that filled rooms. Well, uh, you'd have the raised floor, you'd have heavy duty air conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Every business that had computers had ended up with specialized rooms for this stuff. So the modern data center is sort of a merging of the telecommunications and the compute into a single building because everything is internet now, right? So the ones I've seen, and I must have been involved with um, or visited, dozens of these things in Denver. Um, some are small, like mine. Some were enormous, like a huge converted warehouse,
Mm.
couple 100,000 square feet, I think.
Ah.
Its power was measured in megawatts, uh, not gigawatts. But the again the principle's the same. Like if you drove by it, you would never have known. So it's not like um, these things have been out there for 30 years causing problems. Um, there's an interesting element to this, which is the AI hype bubble generally.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well.
And there's a lot of anxiety in from folks, um, reasonably, because the way the AI companies are talking about their products is like, our product is going to put you all out of work
Right.
in 12 months. That's what Microsoft just said. 12 to
Yeah.
18 months, there will be no more white collar jobs. Um, so, they need to go have a, they don't understand that their only audience isn't the people who want to, buy AI. It's the
Yeah, they
people
gotta work on the marketing a little bit.
like they need to align it with like regular people. So of course people are upset and scared, and
Because they hear that and then they see these start coming up around them and like, oh, that's what's coming for me. They like drive
yeah,
by it,
right.
yeah, and it just kind of builds onto the anxiety.
I think the other piece of the hype bubble here is on the developer side, right? Like I'm just reading the numbers here that you were going over earlier. 7.5 gigawatts. Like
That's
that
word
would
in that
be,
article, yeah.
yeah. That's I think that's a similar figure that I'd heard in relation to this project before. That's like twice as much as the entire state of Utah uses in electricity today.
Yeah,
Um,
that's pretty crazy.
and um, I don't think this is a single building. I think this is intended as a campus. There's in Virginia, there's
Okay.
kind of some uh, similar setups where they've got like 8 buildings in an area that are all on this campus, and they've all become or were built as data centers. But like, so some of the hype bubble stuff here is like, from the developer side, like, we're gonna have a 7.5 gigawatt data center. Well, like, there might be one in the entire world that might be bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you sure that you're gonna develop a 7.5 gigawatt data center? And the power is gonna come from where? Well, okay, they claim they're gonna generate it themselves on site. Well, okay, that's fine. Um, I still question how real some of these numbers are. I believe that the developer is throwing these numbers around to make their project sound really impressive, right?
Right, because they have their
Uh,
reasons, and then it gets picked up by the
yeah,
news, which is like this article, and then people see that and they react to it. But that might not be reality, huh?
but I don't know. I got I got inured to the first .com bubble. People talking about you know all of these billions of dollars you're going to spend and build all this amazing stuff. And then, of course, 80% of those companies were bankrupt the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's a um, there's a gold rush mentality. Bigger is better. I don't think the reality is going to end up being that way. Um, if they actually were burning 7.5 gigawatts in that little valley, um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there'll be some heat.
Yeah. So if that's
Absolutely.
what they're saying actually gets built, then the people kind of being
Yeah.
upset right now, that's kind of valid, huh?
The other thing is, from if it's me, that I was always a fan of decentralizing these things because um, you don't want all of your eggs in one basket, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like one well placed small nuclear device will take out that whole thing,
Yeah.
or even some of the other prominent data center campuses, um, and businesses who run their entire operation in Amazon East, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and have
When that
had
goes down.
significant outages when it goes out.
Yeah. You
Mm,
see those like 10 huge websites that all just go offline at the same time when there's
yes,
situations. Yeah.
yeah. So maybe not the best idea. I don't know about water use. So Utah's climate is very similar to Colorado. Um, in all of the facilities I toured, um, all of them used just regular air conditioning, Freon, free heat
Okay. Yeah.
exchange. Um, there was one small facility in the northern part of the state that was pitching themselves as a eco-friendly green, and they were trying to use swamp coolers. Um, Now, being a Florida native, you might not be familiar with this, but in very dry parts of the country, you can just evaporate water to cool air.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And so like usually like the water gets sprayed into or misted into like straw or some other kind of substrate, and then you blow air through it. Like and for a lot of people out there, their homes are just this sort of thing, swamp coolers. I ran the numbers once for like what would it cost me in water to use just tap water to cool a data center.
Hmm.
It's preposterous. Like it makes no economic sense at all. Um, like in the swamp cooler, you can't. They don't work well in a number of conditions. Like if it gets starts getting a little humid naturally, they don't work well because it depends on evaporation. The evaporation slows when it's already humid. I
Hmm.
think they ended up replacing that with regular, air conditioners. So I can't imagine um, the situation's any different in Utah. Now, some of the bigger facilities used chilled water, but that's a closed loop. So there's a big water tank, and
Hmm.
they're just using water in a closed loop. They recycle it. They chill it, and then they run it through the heat exchangers, and then it comes back warm, and then they chill it again.
It's
Um,
almost sound like what they were saying they were going to do here from like the developer side, saying they were going to reuse water.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's and if he's talking about trucking it in to fill the tank, okay, well that seems reasonable to me. Um, but I guarantee you, there's no conception on the developer's part that they're just going to pump tap water through this and run it down the drain. It's just not it's not feasible. Um, not even if the water was available, the cost would be absurd. So
Interesting.
I think there's like as often happens online, people hear a thing and then they hear another thing and then they mash it all together
And then it
and
just
just
keeps
assume it's all
elevating,
true
and yeah.
and it's you create mass hysteria and it's largely mass hysteria now. If you don't want a data center like literally 200 feet from your house, that's fine. That's a zoning issue. That's a local quality of life issue. um, every data center in the world isn't trying to build in your backyard. We don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. um, um, and like I said, that there is one thing though. So this, in the reading I did on this, this is a government involved project,
Hmm.
right? So there's this district that Utah created, like a special governmental district, like the military data infrastructure, something
Okay.
like they're intending this to be used by government entities.
So is
And
that like
it's
it's being built on federal land at that point, or something similar to
not
that?
not necessarily, but like I think that's the intended user. And there's
Mm, okay.
um, there's already a giant um, data center in Utah run by the NSA, where all of the phone calls and emails that they promise they're not recording are being stored. Um, and I say that a little sarcastically, but that's actually all this metadata collection that we learned that they were doing, some
Hmm.
years ago. That's where that's stored. Uh, is this NSA facility in Utah? So um, I haven't seen that talked about much. That this is in probably going to be a government facility, right?
That's
Essentially,
interesting.
it's
Yeah, I
not
didn't see
run.
that.
It's not owned by the government, but the
Uh
government's
huh.
the customer.
Yeah. Okay. And imagine they'd be one of the bigger customers, and almost sounds
Yeah,
like maybe they're adding more data so they can use their new AI tools they have, and then they can work with their existing whatever they're doing in that existing data center and that data collection area. So
there's
it's
there's one additional
interesting.
comment I'll make on this, which is on Twitter. I just come across a thread about and they've got a nice little AI generated picture
Hmm.
of a meadow, a beautiful meadow with wildflowers, and then that beautiful meadow taken over by a giant data center. And I'm like, okay, aside from the irony right, of using AI, which
Yeah, right.
runs from a data center
That's my
over
first
internet
thought.
lines that go through data centers to post on Twitter, which whose servers are hosted in data centers. Um, Aside from all that, I dug into the account that posted that picture,
Hmm.
and the account was claiming to be an American and acting like, I don't want them to do this to my country. Well,
Yeah.
I go click the about on it, and would you know, the account's based in Southeast Asia.
Yep. That's
So,
a whole nother big discussion, but you're
oh,
absolutely right about that.
so I'll just plant this seed. Who in the world might profit from America not developing facilities necessary to keep up in the world of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, because there's an AI arms race, between different countries, in
There is.
America, and that is such a thing where different countries will make armies of fake accounts claiming to be people in the community, trying to move an agenda in that community that
Yeah.
benefits that foreign country. And it's like, honestly, for me today, if I don't know somebody posting on anywhere, like what is it, like Threads or Twitter
Hmm.
or just like on Reddit, I just kind of assume like this person's lying or this person's not real. It's kind of like, unless you know that person in real life and their handle attached to that account, I don't
Yeah.
even assume like anything they say is real. And
I
that's
I
unfortunate
recently
now, but
I recently got just started getting sick of people on my Facebook list just posting stuff that 5-second search shows is not true,
mm,
right?
yeah,
Like, some politician's house was raided by the FBI. Well, no, it wasn't.
it's just like completely false. And even
Completely false.
and
And I'm
that's like a
like,
thing I do sometimes because you see things and you're like, oh wow, this is a big deal if it's real.
yeah,
Let me Google that real quick, see if it's not real. Okay, no worries, I won't freak out now.
you're
But
right. Yeah,
yeah,
and like what, and like I I I feel like I'm a responsible social media user. Like, if I post something or if I share something and it turns out that I was wrong, that it was false, like, I go back and I apologize and I delete it.
yeah,
And, but other people are just like, "Oh, this makes me feel good about my team." So they just keep
yeah.
posting garbage.
hmm
So,
That's normally why I click the mute button on those people. If it's people I know, or if it's a page, I'm like, I won't go through the drama of taking you off Facebook, but I'm gonna stop because your stuff does not benefit my time.
yeah. So look, I don't mean that the everyone's concerns is irrelevant or anything like that. Like, but let's just have a reasonable conversation about what the risks actually are, what the costs actually are. um, nobody's gonna nobody's gonna disconnect your house from water so it can go to a data center. That's just not going to happen. um, uh, Now, they did build a Costco in Denver about 100 yards
Hmm.
from the back of my house. That was bad enough. Also convenient. I don't know. I was torn.
Yeah, right. Like quicker to get groceries. If you have a data
Uh,
center closer, you might have better internet, but then
yeah,
you still see that big building behind you. Yeah.
but fair enough. Even my small data center was kind of noisy, and if it was in on the edge of a residential area, there would be some noise, right? So that's all
Yeah.
reasonable
And when at
stuff. Again,
this scale, huh?
deal with your local community and zoning and all that stuff. They got to abide by regulations. If they're trying to use eminent domain to take over land, I don't support that. If if they're getting big tax breaks, I'm not going to have. I generally think people should all pay the exact same taxes. That makes me unpopular in most of the world, but um, you know, if you want business to come, lower the taxes for everybody, right? That's my sense on it. So, and that's all stuff that's legitimate, right? You don't have to support that. But that's not the fault of data centers. That's just the fault of
Hmm.
business guys having politicians in their pockets, which
Yeah.
is nothing new.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, yeah, that was a really insightful, conversation. A very educational one to me. Actually, it was really interesting. You kind of had like little personal background, working with data centers, and the company that you owned worked directly with them. It's interesting to hear that, and yeah, I think just we're kind of going back to saying people actually learning about some of these things, and there's like, yes, there's pros and cons, and there's realities and falsehoods, and
Hmm.
just have talking to somebody about it instead of just seeing something pop up online and instantly reacting to it. But
Yeah,
that kind
and
of goes into a different topic, but
it,
still.
it is it is the effort that people will expend to defend some random meme that they reposted is just unreal.
If they use the
Like,
effort to actually try find what the truth behind it
yeah, yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
or listen to people who know what they're talking about, like real actual human beings, not you know, uh, sorry, Chinese
Not.
meme factories.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It's anyway.
No,
Uh,
absolutely. Alrighty. Well, yeah, no, that was an awesome conversation. And let's see. So we will move over to the next segment in the show. We will go to tech recommendations if we have any. And I didn't write mine down, but actually I do have one. And I'm gonna say my tech recommendation is using the app. Kind of, we're talking about Apple apps again, but Apple Maps is what it's called versus Google Maps. And
oh,
I say
really?
this, yeah, and a lot of people might think that's surprising, and this kind of goes back to when I believe so. Originally, it was just Google Maps came out, and then Apple made their own maps, and it was just
Hmm.
like notoriously bad. Like a lot of their information was bad. The routes they made
Hmm.
was bad. It wasn't great. Well, that was like 15 years ago, and since then they've improved quite a bit, and actually I have both on my phone, and it's kind of random which one I use. Most of the time, I'll just I search maps on my search. I don't like pick the app. I need maps. I search maps, and then whatever comes up, I kind of click. And the
Oh, okay.
CarPlay, like, and the icons look very similar, even if you are clicking by the
Yeah.
icon. But you're just in there like, okay, let me throw my. You're in the car. You're like, let me throw my address and let me go. But I notice when I'm like traveling between cities and I have Google Maps on, it's like the layout or the way I miss way more streets using Google Maps than I do for using
Oh,
Apple Maps. And I
okay.
started to notice this. So that's like I make an effort now to check which one I'm using, and I'll always go with Apple Maps. So that's just something that's happened in my personal life, and that's
Hmm.
between the two, that's something I would recommend. And that just came up in my head today. But I will say, one benefit of Google Maps is that they use the Google reviews for if you're looking up restaurants or places to go to, and
Oh,
like the pictures
okay.
there are much better. And Apple, they don't have their own platform for that, so
Oh,
they
right,
just
right.
use Yelp. And I think Yelp was okay like 10 years ago when it felt like people were kind of using it, and it was helpful. But I feel like Yelp has pretty much deprecated in the last like even 5 years. So like if you look up a restaurant, you might find it on Apple Maps. And you're like, oh, this place looks good. Well, actually, it closed 4 years ago. It doesn't say that on there. The hours are completely wrong, or they
Yeah.
moved, but Google Maps does a much better job of being accurate for that. So it's actually an unfortunate
Hmm.
situation I found myself in now, where if I'm looking for places to go or restaurants, or I want to know about a certain place, I'll search for it on Google Maps because it's actually a better interface than searching for it on Google.com.
Hmm.
Annoyingly enough, for like places like that. And then if I actually want to go there, I'll get the address and put it in Apple Maps,
Okay.
which isn't a great system, but it's one that works best for me right now. But
Well,
for
there you go.
just driving to get to the place, I recommend Apple Maps.
Alrighty.
All right. So, any tech recommendations from you? Anything you've been
Uh,
doing lately?
I sure I mentioned this last episode, but Cursor AI. So when I first started getting back into software engineering, hot and heavy here the last few years, I first was recommended to use VS Code, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, this is great. And actually, I first wanted to try out what was it, Atom, because I saw a bunch of good stuff about Atom, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't get Atom. What? But then it's like, okay, fine, I'll try this Microsoft product, and what can I say? It's great. So, but then quickly one of the one of our fellow software developers here turned me on to Cursor, which is basically VS Code with AI stuff integrated into it.
Hmm.
So
It
I
was an
kind of
actual
like,
fork of VS Code, right?
yeah, it is
Yeah.
VS Code forked, and then they've customized how the AI can plug into it in ways that I guess the regular extension interface couldn't support,
Hmm.
which is why they did that. So I've been using that, I think, for a year and a half, at least, maybe almost 2 years.
Hmm.
Um, I'm just really happy with it. As they've been keeping up with the AI development stuff, so it started out like many of these things did with tab complete, like super smart tab completion in your code.
Yep.
But today they've got it where you can they have an agent dashboard. You can fire off multiple agents. An agent can do work across all your different repos that you have locally. You can have five running at the same time. You can choose you can choose the model, right? So
Hmm.
they plug into OpenAI and Claude, and they have their own models and Gemini. Actually, they got like 50 models you can pick from,
Oh wow.
um, and you can use whichever one is appropriate for the job. And I kind of like it being in the code editor because it makes it really easy for me to see what it just did. So
Oh
I'm like,
yeah,
go write a
totally.
bunch of stuff, and then it's split across 15 files. Well, I can just click a button and I see a nice summary, like a git commit type display of
Hmm.
here's all the files it touched, here's all the edits, and I can quickly do a code review because I'm still a little bit of a control freak when it comes to this stuff.
Oh
There's
yeah.
there's the AI users who are like, just go write the code out, don't bother me. I'm not even going to
Yeah.
look at it.
That
Publish.
that's Yeah, I think that's the difference between vibe coding and still being a software engineer is
Yeah,
you read, understand everything it does and make sure it's okay to be added to those branches and those commits and not
yeah,
just like, blind and just
right.
yeah, throw in a bunch of drop table queries and whatever.
Yeah. So I have not extensive. I did try a couple times. I have not extensively used Claude Code, which kind of makes me an odd duck these days. I think because my impression is that many people are basically just Claude Code all day long. But I think at the end of the day, if I'm using the Claude model, right,
Yeah.
unless the Claude agent is especially better, and I don't have any evidence of that one way or the other.
What
Um,
you're describing sounds very similar to it, if not
yeah.
identical. Some parts of it sounds better to me actually.
Um, it's worth a try. It's worth a look. I think you get they get some volume discounts probably on their API AI API buys, and pass the savings on to you.
Yeah.
I've
That's
been very happy with it. Works great, and it's easy to click undo and revert uh, to my version before the AI screwed it up.
nice. Yeah, I know there's supposed to be a way to do that on Claude. I actually have
I'm
to
sure.
figure it
I'm
out.
sure.
I'm
Um,
sure I could Google it, but I've just been lucky enough where I've been able to, I guess I use my Git history. I'll like reset a branch if I, not a branch, but like a file if I need to, just small
yeah.
incremental changes. But yeah, that sounds awesome. I still need to play with Cursor. I've been saying I was gonna do it for years. About like maybe when right before Claude or right when Claude Code came out, I was like, okay, I'm
Hmm.
gonna do this because I need to see what's going on. I need to be a part of it. And then Claude Code was kind of the new hot thing, and I jumped on that, and that was kind of my. But it sounds like it sounds very similar, and I really want to download Cursor now just to have that comparison and see.
Yeah.
The Git log part sounds pretty interesting because for me, I guess this is just me, using the Ngrade, Git, updates in VS Code, but you kind of click through each file and it shows you that
Hmm.
side by side panel of the changes.
Okay.
But to
Yeah.
actually have one list and just be able to look at the changes in one list instead of having to click every single file, that
Yeah.
sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
It's very streamlined.
I have a like a what's the word for it? Yeah, I'll just say what it is. But I'm part of like my daughter's PTO at school, and
Hmm.
they just don't have a great online place. They just kind of use Facebook. So I said,
Hmm.
I'll make you a great CMS website, so you can have your PTO members go on and add events in there and whatever they updates, because like
Cool.
on Facebook they kind of just rely on the the Facebook algorithm. And then like I don't see half the stuff they post. I told them, long story short, I have a project to do, and that might be interesting to do that project with Cursor. Try it out.
Yeah. And is it working? Did you get it
This
done
is
yet?
has not begun yet.
Oh, okay. I see.
So this is kind of like in the moment inspiration. Like, okay, I should try Cursor just to try, even if it's similar, be able to compare. And I have a project I haven't started yet, so I think I'm gonna start with that project and try it with Cursor.
That's a great example of, I think, the great potential empowerment that AI will give people. Like, if you had to code all that from scratch by hand,
I
like
wouldn't.
you would probably never agree. You would never have offered to do that because it's a huge time investment to replicate that kind of
Yeah,
thing. But now everybody can make their own, freaking Facebook without the stupid Facebook algorithm.
yeah. My thoughts exactly. Like, if I said okay, I'll do this, and obviously it's a PTO, so I don't really have money to pay me, but I do know this would be a
Mm-hmm.
great resource for them. And I know, even if I just use existing like WordPress as a background, a back end, the CMS for it, I could still churn this out, pretty quickly without,
Yeah.
giving up a whole lot of time and have it be a valuable, platform they could use. So yeah, my thoughts exactly.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah, I'll share updates as I work on it. Alrighty, awesome. So we will close out this episode by talking about this week's This Day in Tech History. This episode will go live tomorrow, which will be May 25th. And on May 25th in tech history was the original release date for the very first original Star Wars movies in theaters that came out May 25th, 1977. And this counts as a tech history, if you ask me, because they had, when that movie came out, the special effects it had were just way above, before its time. Nothing like that had been released before. The company that was created, as part of making Star Wars Industrial Light and Magic, they're basically a tech company with the visual effects they do. And if you go on the list of films that they've been a part of, like they are almost kind of like the monopoly in a way of a visual effects company. Like pretty much
They're the
any
heavy
movie
hitter,
that
yeah.
comes out. Yeah, they sure are. So if you're watching a movie, it's a pretty good chance that was Industrial Light and Magic, and that came from the very first Star Wars movie coming out.
Let's see. Hang on a second. Oh, okay. So that got sold to Disney along with Lucasfilm.
Yep.
But yeah, that was, he was a genius in some ways. He's still around.
Yep.
Because he did that. He's like, nobody can do the effects I need, so I'm just going to start my own company. And I think it took a long time for people to realize that the Star Wars guy was basically doing the effects for all these other movies
Mm-hmm.
for so long. Even like the Star Trek movies, which were sort of
Yep.
directly competing with him, he was doing the effects.
They're just too
for the
good to
first
go
several
with
of
anyone
those.
else.
Yeah.
And like even the sound also, like if you watch
Mhm.
the credits for any movie, there's a
Yeah.
good chance at the end of the movie, I think it's Skywalker Ranch, which does all like the sound effects for the movies. Like I guess
Mhm.
THX I think was
Yep.
a part of that, another one. So yeah, he's like George Lucas and like modern special effects for movies, all root from Star Wars. So
Yep.
it counts as a tech history.
I'm sorry to say this, but he's a much better innovator in that regard than say scriptwriter. But
Yeah, I think he did the original scripts, and then he came back later, like the prequels, not as great, and then and Disney didn't do a great job either.
he
But
did the
yeah,
very first movie, and then other people wrote the sequels. But
right.
May 25th. So I was not there on that day, but I did see that movie that summer, and
Okay, awesome.
nobody had ever seen anything like it. So definitely worth a shout out to Star Wars.
Absolutely, always shout out Star Wars. And May 4th is kind of like the Star Wars Day, but this can be a second Star Wars Day in May. It's fun how both those days ended up in May. So I think I might put on Star Wars tonight. I didn't watch it on the actual Star Wars Day, so I'll put on. I know they have like a new one in theaters right now, which is like I don't know if
Oh,
you even know. Like a lot of people don't
the
even know
Mandalorian
about
and,
it.
and Grogu, is
Yeah,
that the one? Yeah.
yeah. I've heard it's fine, but people are basically saying it feels like an episode of the TV show just in theaters. So,
I enjoyed watching some of that show, but
hmm
I I kind of feel like I'm craving something new. Like
Yeah.
Star
I
Wars
think the
isn't,
show kind of ran its course.
it's not new anymore. And
Yeah.
you know, it's a trap of being, you gotta, a feeling like you gotta stay in the universe and serve the fans of the existing thing, but at the same time people want, like, something different, like Star Wars was in 1977. It was something completely new and different. We need that now, please.
Absolutely. Yes. And also, just as a quick bonus, also on May 25th, was it like 4 years later or 5 years later? That's when the Return of the Jedi came out on the same day. So I thought I'd throw that bonus in there. First
Cool.
and third Star Wars movie, same
So
day.
it's doubly awesome.
Absolutely. Alrighty. Well, that's the show. Thank you so much for listening to Thinking in Tech. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to follow us on your podcast service of choice. Or if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, if you haven't hit the like button yet, you've sat with us this whole time. Go ahead and click that like button. Apparently, you liked it, so helps us out a ton. If you're somebody who may be interested in appearing on this show as a guest, feel free to email us at thinkingintechpod@gmail.com. We'd love to have you on the show. And then the final legal bit, views expressed in this podcast are completely of our own and do not reflect or represent the views of any past, current, or future employers. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.